Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, a season of two halves is probably how I would sum up Alfa Romeo's 2019, and that pretty much goes for the drivers as well, but more on them a little bit later. The team had a strong start to the season, picking up points at each of the first 4 races and 8 of the first 12 races. Frankly, not bad at all. They were well in the mix when it came to the fight in the midfield, and I seem to recall discussing during a live stream the outside possibility of them even beating Renault in the Constructors. I felt like they had an outside shot at the very least anyway. However, the second half of the year was not quite so fruitful for them, as they only managed 3-point finishes in the final 9 races. I was looking for a reason as to why they were so inconsistent all of a sudden in 2019, certainly when it came to their race pace in the second half of the season anyway, because I don't really recall hearing too much about it. You hear a lot about Haas's problems and other teams in the midfield and throughout the grid, but Alfa do like to keep things very close to their chest. But I had a look around, and according to Frederick Vasseur around the Japanese Grand Prix, their biggest issue at that time anyway was that they were struggling to understand how to get the best out of the tyres on race day. So it looks as though they were having a similar but perhaps less dramatic problem to Haas. He also said back in November that the team had switched focus as 2020, but insisted that their drop-off in consistency was not necessarily tied to a drop-off in pace, and it was more to do with them failing to optimise their weekends. To be fair though, I don't think they could be too disappointed with the season as a whole. Yeah, alright, I can imagine the drop-off in pace and the sudden drop-off in results will sting a bit, but if we look at them as the Sauber team, they have scored more points this year than the previous 3 seasons combined. So definitely a big positive to take away from this season. And I guess this is something that I should really say for every single team in the midfield. But one mistake, one poor strategy call, or even going the wrong way in terms of setup can be the difference between scoring points and ending up somewhere towards the back of that midfield group. The point I'm making is that points and results and stats don't always tell the full story. Moving on to the drivers though, and in the early stages of the season, actually all the way up to the summer break really, Kimi Raikkonen really was pretty much carrying that team. And I guess you'd kind of expect that, I suppose, from a driver with his level of experience. He was comfortably beating teammate Giovinazzi in both qualifying and the races. And come the summer break, he'd picked up a whopping 30 points more than the Italian. Massive gap between them. He was just doing what we've all come to expect from Kimi Raikkonen, getting on with it and delivering the results. How many times this year have I run through the race result in a reaction stream and been surprised by Kimi's finishing position? Again, he often goes under the radar and delivers. His second half of the year hasn't been anywhere near as good as his first half, but to be perfectly honest, I think he's still been very solid. He's also had some bad luck as well, which goes some of the way to explaining why he hasn't been grabbing the points quite as often as he was earlier in the year. But that being said, after all the chaos and post-race penalties were applied in Brazil, he did still find himself in 4th place, so massive positive there. Not the season finale, but a decent way to end the year. Overall though, I really do think his first season at Alfa has been a very good one, and he's shown that he's still got it. There was a lot of talk, wasn't there, going into this year about why he's gone to Alfa. Is he really quite as up for it as he has been in previous years, given his age as well? But quite frankly, I think if he could race till he was 100, he would. He's just one of those drivers that just loves to be out there on track. His experience as well has been a huge asset to that team, and it will continue to be next year as well. And alright, yeah, he probably did want to be fighting at the front of the grid, or would have preferred to have been, but I still think Kimi will be happy with how things have gone this year for the most part. Again, it's been a bit up and down at times, and if you look at Abu Dhabi, for example, there have been times where the pace has been pretty poor, but overall, it's been a good year for Kimi, and he's impressed me once again. Back to what I said earlier about it being a season of two halves, that has certainly been the case for Antonio Giovinazzi, hasn't it? I can't lie, I was sceptical when he was announced as one of their drivers for this year, and I wasn't totally convinced he would deliver. And to be fair, it really did seem to take him a while to get going. Just 1 point from the first 13 races. To put that into context, that is the same as Kubica in a Williams. Although it must be said that without the penalties in Germany, he would have had more points on the board. But anyway, my point is, I really wasn't that impressed with him initially. Here's the thing though, when you go back and look through the stats and some of the race highlights, even though he struggled early on, he did keep improving race to race. His post-summer break form though was so much better. It really did feel like night and day when compared to his pre-summer form. He was quicker in the races, picked up 13 more points, and was even beginning to out-qualify Kimi on a semi-regular basis. No, he wasn't suddenly destroying the Finn on a Saturday, but he was starting to give him a run for his money. I have genuinely been really impressed with how Gio has grown over the course of the season, to the point where I absolutely believe it was right to keep him in that seat for next year. He's improved across the board. I mean, go and check out some of the season stats at racefans.net. They have his average qualifying deficit to Kimi at 0.05 of a second, and Lights Out blog, because of the way they calculate it, have it at 0.09 of a second. So nothing really when you consider the difference in experience. And that's another thing. How good is that for a guy in his first full season, taking on a guy who's been around on and off since 2001? Pretty impressive. So I'm really pleased they kept him, or Ferrari kept him, or whoever it was that kept him. All in all, though, as I said towards the start, I think the whole team can be fairly happy with their 2019 campaign. Of course, a lot of the talk at the start of the season was about development thanks to these new regulations, and I said it pre-season, I felt like Alfa would have been a team that developed well and moved forward as the season went on, but as it turns out, it never really worked out that way. Both drivers have been solid, with Gio improving, and that has surely got to give them so much cause for optimism next year. Again, I know I said this after testing, and maybe if I keep saying it, hey, it might even happen. But perhaps Alfa will be one of the dark horses for 2020. Yes, I know, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself already. That is it then for this video, but don't forget that you can let me know your thoughts on Alfa Romeo and their drivers' seasons down in the comment section. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever, but in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.